Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to KHM Today, your weekly resource for industry news and straight up fun. I am your host, Carolyn Orff, and today is June 21st, 2023. You guys, where has the month gone? It's crazy. Today is International Yoga Day, you guys. And so, how many of you started out your day with a little yoga, a little downward dog, tree pose, chair? I will tell you, I did. If you guys have been a long-term watcher of the show, you know that during COVID, this is something I got into. I'm typically more of a step aerobics, cycling, music thumping kind of exerciser. And during COVID, I felt like this was something I should do to try and find a little calming inner peace. And I have kind of fallen in love with it. I'm not very good at it, but I do enjoy it. And I do feel like after sitting all day, it does help to loosen things up. And as I get older, it tends to help body movement. So I'm very excited for International Yoga Day. And what else am I excited about? The longest day of the year being summer solstice. So, yay, it's my favorite day of the year. As soon as we're done with the show, I'll be hitting the outdoors in my outdoor office so that I can enjoy these wonderful summer nights. Just a little bit of news. Okay, you guys, travel agent tips. We love this series with Mr. Bill Coyle, and there is a new one out this Thursday, premiering at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. How to charge a service fee, or how to charge a fee in general. This topic comes up all the time, and we've talked about it in different places. Bill's going to share his thoughts with all of you Thursday evening on our YouTube channel. So don't forget to tune in to that. Like I said, today is International Yoga Day. And so with us today is a new guest to the show. Please welcome Melody Cargill, Corporate Fitness Manager for Sandals and Beaches Resorts. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I'm glad you did your downward dog and all your stretches and
I
yoga poses.
I
Amazing.
do you yoga?
I do yoga when I have time. Usually not in the mornings. I'm more of an evening
Yeah.
before bed, and then
I
it
have
helps me
these
sleep.
apps that are really, really fun. So I'll do like 30 minutes in the morning, and actually before bed, I'll kind of do like a 5 minute
Yeah.
because I tend to tighten into a very tight ball, and that's not
Yes.
good ever. But at my age now, that's how I tend to wake up, and then I have to dump myself out of bed because I'm
Right.
so tense. So it has really helped. But I like it to just clear the mind too. Um,
Absolutely.
quiet down. I turn the phone off. I make sure I'm not
Absolutely.
looking at messages. So I really do love it. So, yoga, can I find it at a Sandals or Beaches resort?
Absolutely. So we do have each property has a fitness pro and a tennis pro. Not all of our fitness pros are yoga certified. Um, but if there are guests at properties where our pros don't conduct yoga, we can arrange it for them. We do have yogis on call who will do classes for them.
Very
Absolutely.
That's awesome. All right. So, fitness and wellness.
Yes.
How important is this to the brand?
I think with so much going on in people's lives, when guests do choose Sandals as their vacation destination or home away from home, I think it's really important to communicate to them that we genuinely care about their overall well being, whether it's them wanting to continue to eat healthier. We have gluten free things on our menus, and even in our Cafe de Paris, which is where we have all the
Mhm.
pastries. So you have that option. Whether they want to do an amazing spa service or they want to go swimming, join the water sports team to do paddle boarding, um, or if they want to do one of our complimentary fitness classes or tennis clinics, it's available to them. And I think it's important that they know that we care.
Well, and I feel like over the last several years, n vacation mindset has kind of changed a little bit. I know when I go on vacation, it was about overindulging, right? Food,
Absolutely.
drink, excess everything, right? Because this is not what you did in your daily life, and I feel like that mindset has kinda shifted a little bit, and we see people it's not that they wanna go and they go on vacation and they diet. But they tend to do things that maybe they don't always have time to do at home, which is take that stroll on the beach or go paddle boarding or participate in that water aerobics class. So, do you feel like you've seen that shift as well? And so your job becomes more because you have to be listening and watching what they want to be doing on vacation.
Absolutely. My job doesn't become more, my job becomes more exciting. Um, I think since the pandemic, since you mentioned it, we have seen more guests use our fitness facilities. We've seen more guests join our classes. We've seen more personal training bookings.
Mhm.
People are still eating and drinking. Then they feel a little guilty, but they know that there's a gym there that's open 24 hours to them. um, and I mean, our gyms in the mornings are so busy, and then they're good for the rest of the day. And if they
Yeah.
decide they want to do an additional class that we offer, they can join as well. So
What's
it's been
what's the
amazing.
best part of your job, Melody?
My best well-being is a lifestyle, I think. I think getting to meet different people, you get to each Sandals, each beaches has a different clientele,
Mhm.
knowing what they're requesting. And what we're trying to do now is personalize each property and accommodate the type of clientele that comes there, which is fascinating. You get to meet people from all over the world. It's amazing.
I think that's really interesting and probably something that I hadn't thought that the
Hmm.
brand was doing in the past because, you think that there are certain characteristics of each property that become consistent,
Right.
and it almost sounds like each one is becoming its own entity
That's what's
because it
slowly
has its
happening.
own personality, and maybe that's the way it always was, but it certainly wasn't the way I perceived it or the brand, so I think
Mhm.
that's really cool.
Yes, each property has a different personality. Our pros know that best. The people on the ground knows that
Mhm.
best. We have a lot of repeat guests who want to experience something new. Um, and we have a lot of new guests who are excited to see what we have to offer. So depending on where they go, and again, what kind of clientele we have, we want to now personalize it just a bit so they feel a little bit more special.
You were telling me something last week about a new fitness certification that many of your pros have. Can you share a little bit about what that is and why it matters?
Absolutely. So, first of all of our fitness pros are certified and they all have just completed a Therabody course. So, they're very excited about that. We're going to be implementing the Theragun to some of our services, whether you want to use it alone, that's fine. Whether you want to use it before a personal training session or before a pickleball session or a tennis session, or even before a spa service.
And
So
what
we
is
will
it exactly?
a Theragun, oh, it's an amazing tool. People who have aches and pains, it helps with sciatica, it helps with tightness, it loosens up your muscles, and they've been using it on themselves. It's funny, one of our fitness pros actually had a slight back injury from working out too hard. And he actually did some yoga and he used the Theragun on himself. And within a day or two, he was back to normal. So we're using it on ourselves so we know how to market it to
Mhm.
people and let people know how beneficial this tool is.
That
So
sounds amazing. Like,
that's great,
for someone who tends to carry it all in her shoulders, that
which we
sounds
do.
amazing.
So
I
the
love it.
great thing is whenever I visit the properties, I can just ask one of the pros, hey, do you want to try that Theragun out on me? So I have a whole bunch of properties to visit. So that's another benefit
I
of
love
my
it.
job.
Melody, when you talk about the properties and the accessibility of different foods, how much does your role play in, the menu creation or looking at the menus and saying, "Oh gosh, you guys, that's
I
a little
think
too many calories," or "Hey, how can we shift it this way?" Do you have any say in that, or do you just kind of
we
sit
we
back?
do have meetings, but our F&B team and our chefs are amazing. If you look at our menus now, there are choices. There are healthy choices, there are vegan choices, there are gluten-free
Mhm,
choices. So they're already on top of the ball. So we're really happy about that because if you think about it, food and drink, F&B, is connected with wellness and fitness. So it's just really up to the individual. It's up to the guest to decide what kind of vacation they're going to have. Are they going
mhm.
to indulge and then work out, or are they going to just stick to the plan from back home? And it's all available to them.
Yeah. I will tell you, I don't even know that I've shared this with any of your the other folks at the corporate office, but the very first vacation I took with my family after my daughter was diagnosed with celiac was to Beaches Ocho Rios,
Okay.
and she was 2 years old,
Hmm.
and, it was amazing.
Right.
Because I was brand new to this, I didn't know what to expect, and for it to be amazing 17 years ago, and to now watch how that whole process has progressed and the availability and accessibility of it, it's just astounding to me how things have just changed and grown. But to think 17 years ago, that
Hmm.
vacation worked for our family when I thought I was never gonna be able to leave my home again
Yes. Yes.
and
You know,
have my child eat, I have
yes.
such a fondness for the resorts and the brand in particular to be able to meet that need.
Absolutely. They still continue to do that. Um, yes, you have some children who are picky eaters. We have separate menus for them. If you have a request, our executive chefs are very approachable. You'll see them walking around their dining areas, speaking with guests, getting more information. And we do listen, and we
Mhm.
do modify, and we do accommodate 100%.
Yeah. So, okay, I wanna ask a final question. We were
Sure.
talking about this before we came on the show with Ryan. Pickleball and Sandals and Beaches resorts. It's
Pickleball.
big now, and
It
I
is.
don't think I knew because when I think of Sandals, I a lot of times think of golf.
Hmm.
If you've got groups, you're playing golf, check out Sandals. But
Absolutely.
pickleball is now an option.
It is an option. I'll give you a
And
short,
tennis
funny
too. We
backstory.
shouldn't we shouldn't shortcut tennis because tennis is big for you guys as well.
Tennis is always going to be big. We always have our dedicated tennis players. They still come. We still have our tennis courts. I'll give you a funny story. So when pickleball was first mentioned to us, we were like, "Oh, what's this? What's this?" Wasn't sure about it. Thought it would be a just a trend. So we actually started off at Sandals South Coast with getting tape, and we would put tape
Yeah.
on the courts to see if there would be any traction. We bought some pickleball equipment, and then we very quickly found out that it's not a trend. It's a growing sport. Let's talk Sandals South Coast for now. We have 8 pickleball courts currently. Last year, we had over 250 rooms booked for Sandals South Coast just because of our pickleball feature. This year it's over 300. We already have pickleball groups booking for next year and 2015. So this is something we're excited about. And the Jamaican Open Pickleball Championships have approached us and would like Sandals to host their annual pickleball
Gosh.
tournament. So we're back and forth with them to see how we can accommodate them, what property we're going to use, what time of year. So yeah, we learned very quickly it's not a trend. I think pickleball is here to stay. So we're accommodating all of our guests who are groups who decide they want to play pickleball. We're ready for them, ready
I
and
love it.
waiting.
Well, and I think it just shows another thing. You can't be stagnant in this business. You
No,
have to constantly be evolving and listening to the trends and really watching. Is it a fad or is it a trend? And what do we do with that information? And how quickly can we jump on that bandwagon, right? I mean, you don't want it to
absolutely,
be 5 years from now. You need to get in sort of early so that you can be that consistent partner with those teams and those leagues. So I'm very
absolutely.
excited for you guys. I hope that I
Thank
will
you.
have an opportunity to come down there and play a little pickleball myself. Um,
Absolutely.
but it has been a joy to have you on here. I absolutely love meeting members of the Sandals and Beaches team, and
Thank you.
I'm so happy that you were able to join us today. So thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely. Anytime. And we look forward to seeing you. Bring your pickleball gear. If you
I
don't
know.
have it, we have everything here for you already.
That's great. Thank you so much, Melody, and enjoy the
Thank
rest
you.
of summer solstice and
Absolutely.
International Yoga Day.
Thank you so much.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye bye.
You guys, such a fun conversation. Our next guest, I had the pleasure of meeting. I think we met at Destination Success last year, but then we had the pleasure of spending some time together recently on a fam to Punta Cana. So please welcome Ryan Cowden with KHM. He's an agent, but also of course, owns his own agency live from Chicago. He's actually in his home working this week and not off jetting somewhere.
For a change, I'm planted in Chicago. I said it was going to be a quiet summer, and then about a week and a half ago, it turned out nope, not going to be quiet from
Who
August.
wants quiet? Who
Who
wants
wants
quiet?
quiet? But
So, okay, so before we get started, do you do yoga?
I did in grad school, and I still use a lot of them before I go to the gym. But I don't specifically do yoga now.
Yeah. All right. What are you going to do for summer solstice? How late are you going to stay up? Because it's the longest day of the year.
Well, I got a text message this morning from a friend. He's like, "Hey, so we're going out on the boat on Lake Michigan after about 4 o'clock. Do you want to go?" I'm like, "Yes." In fact, I do want to go. So I will be out on a boat.
Yeah, there are worse things that can happen, right?
There are worse places to be. Yes.
I don't know about you. We don't have many lakes here in Colorado. We have small reservoirs and we have had a ton of rain. So the lakes or reservoirs are very, very full. I have had at least 3 phone calls from clients boating. While they're boating, they are thinking about vacations. And so they are calling me from the boat. And I'm like, I feel like you could call me later. They're like, no, no, no. It was top of mind. So you've got splashing and, motors going. And I'm like, okay, let's just see if we can unpack this quickly so you can
Hey,
get back to the fun.
if it works,
So,
it works, you know?
what a great way to spend an evening out on the on
For
on
sure.
the lake. All right, so you are here today because it is Pride Month and you believe there are several things that our LGBTQ plus clients would love travel advisors to know and to think about when they are working with this clientele. So the first one is safety. And we've talked about it before, but what do we need to be thinking about as agents when it comes to safety for this demographic of people?
So it can look a little bit different for everybody across the spectrum. It's going to look different for me than it's going to look for somebody else. But at the heart of it, it usually is going to come down to the destination. Are we welcome? Do we have to worry about our guides, our hotels having a problem? And then it goes all the way up to certain countries and destinations. Are we even able to go there? And one of the questions last year at the IGLTA convention, the CEO led off the panel discussion and said, so do we boycott destinations where we're illegal or do we not? And the answer was no, but. And you have to kind of make that decision for yourself and not for your client to what does that look like? So for example, some people would say Egypt or Dubai. Oh no, it's completely illegal for us to go there. But one of the biggest club nights I've ever been to in the last probably 10 years was in Dubai, and it was all men. So it's fine. Went to Egypt, no problem. So it's just a matter of sometimes people have to adapt themselves to where they're going, and some people don't feel safe or comfortable doing that either. So you have to let your own client decide that for themselves, but knowing that that is a various range of experiences and safety concerns. I once heard somebody say, you may have come out when you were younger, but every day or every so often throughout the rest of your life, is that clerk, if you slip up and say, oh, I'm buying this for my husband or wife, are they going to, look crazy at you? So it goes the same for them coming to you if you don't know them as a potential client or cold call. Maybe they know or have heard you are the best river cruise agent in your area and they call you and they want to go, but they're a little nervous to tell you. So just kind of putting people at ease that from that safety perspective, starting with you and giving them the best information for themselves to decide what is right for them.
Do you have particular resources or places that you go for this information? I know IGLTA is a great resource. Are there other places that you go to get the most current information?
IGLTA is a good one. And if anybody ever has any questions, you can always, I'm happy to answer those questions if somebody has them. So, I mean, I've been pretty fortunate to have traveled a lot of places, and some of them, Singapore, for example, was up until recently, it was illegal, but so you wouldn't have known it if you were out at this bar and club. So I've got some experiences. So if anybody ever wants to know, I'm certainly happy to answer that question too. But IGLTA is a good one. Don't always go strictly by what you get on Google, because you'll hear people say, oh, you can't go there, but maybe you can. So it's just a matter of get some reputable resources. But usually the best one to start with is IGLTA. They have some info per country and what the actual rules and regulations are, if they're enforced or not.
Does an agent need to be concerned or worried at all that, they've made a recommendation, the client decides to go against their recommendation, the agent books the trip, not feeling 100% comfortable with the safety piece? How responsible should they feel, or I guess maybe they choose then, I don't recommend this, I'm not going to book this for you?
I mean, there's always some
Where I'm
level.
going.
There's always some level of this, regardless of who your client is. Is it a family-friendly place versus not? And it doesn't. So in a lot of ways, the gay and lesbian community and travelers are the same as anybody else. They just have slightly different things. So you're still coming down to how much do you want a DIY? How much do you want private tours? How much do you want art, history, culture, food? So a lot of those are the same. So it's almost the same for most of it. But if you're recommending somewhere I don't know that would be a good option, just be frank and say, here's my concerns, here's some resources, here's what the State Department says. For example, the State Department actually has a segment, one that's not really thought of often is, but HIV positive travelers, they actually are not permitted entry in some countries. So, and it's still this way now. And the State Department does have that on their info. So, you could send them IGLTA, send them what you find, State Department, the blurb, whatever it is that applies. And if you don't know what applies, just give them the info and say, hey, I've got some concerns. You might want to look through this, and let them decide for themselves.
I love that you said that, because when it does come to safety, there are absolutely different levels and different things to be concerned about. But ultimately, no matter who your client is, they make the decision, not you. They have to make that decision. So that's a great point. Okay, the next thing you wish every agent knew was that Pride isn't just in June, especially in Europe.
Especially in Europe.
It's months long, if not all year long.
Yeah, so the first big Pride weekend in Europe starts in Maspalomas in Gran Canaria, and it starts in mid-May. And then all the way through the end of Bank Holiday weekend in August in Manchester, there's pretty much somewhere having a Pride weekend of some sort all the way through, whether it's Tel Aviv or London, it's a big one, but Manchester, Brighton are two big ones in August. Amsterdam is probably one of the biggest. And it's a good way if you've got clients that are going, hey, maybe just saying, this is coming up in that window of time you're going, is that of interest or not? It may or may not be, but it's just a good way to show that you're kind of a little in tune and that, hey, it's in there and maybe it works for you and maybe it doesn't. But Madrid is like the biggest one in Europe. Mardi Gras is Sydney's Pride, and that's the first weekend of March. So there's some outside of the typical window of June that are worth knowing that might be a good sell for your client. There's a couple that rotate too. Euro Pride is pretty much every year, and it moves somewhere every year. This year it's in Malta in September. And I just happened to see at the IGLTA convention last year that they had just announced the dates, and I had already talked to a client that wanted to go to Malta some point in the next coming years. And I took a picture and I said, are you going here next year? Do you want to go? And I booked them this winter. So, there's just little things that appeal to different people. So just knowing that it's not specifically June everywhere.
Right. Okay, so the next one, I think this is very, very interesting. So I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this. You say many gay travelers are well traveled. Don't be offended if you can't win them over. So tell me about that.
So I see sometimes some agents get upset when they see their friends or whatever traveling. And like I've kind of said to a few people, I'd been to 50 plus countries and I'd never used an agent. And I know a lot of friends that are in the same. They're in the 30s, 40s. I even have a few friends that are in the 100 countries club. Nobody's ever used an agent. So don't get offended that maybe they don't necessarily need an agent. It might not be bad to ask, hey, do you like the planning process? And I've gotten a few that are like, oh, I hate it. Oh, you do that now? Oh, okay. So, or they've been to London 50 times. They don't need somebody to do it for them. But I did get somebody at a recent event and he's like, so we're going to go to Thailand for our honeymoon. So how do you feel about that? And I was like, yeah, I take care of it. And they're like, we've never been. So, so you just never know.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there are quite a few that will only go with a LGBTQ plus tour operator too. And that comes back to safety. So if you're going with some of those, like, for example, I went from Tel Aviv to Petra with one, and I knew that the guides that we had in Jordan and wherever would not be unfriendly, shall we say. So there's that dynamic for some travelers, and maybe you are, maybe you aren't set up to handle those if you know where they are. But there's some people that will. I priced out a Peru trip the exact same price with Avanti, one of our partners, and another local gay owned operated tour agent in Peru. They picked the one that was the local owned. So it does happen. So don't be offended if you're not set up or it's just not your dynamic, but just be aware that it could come up. They may ask you.
That's really interesting, I think. And I love the fact that you kind of give two options and which one suits you better.
Right. And that's like, you go back to let them make that decision, what works for them.
Right. Okay. And then don't be afraid to tell a supplier who is traveling. So as you're in the booking process, it's okay because they might have different recommendations based on that information.
Correct. So sometimes people are, maybe as an agent, you're afraid to offend somebody to ask them and find out who they are, who they're traveling with. But it's almost the same as if you're asking about their mobility concerns. There's ways around it. Just who you're traveling with, what's the sleeping arrangement you need for your room, or if you don't want to flat out ask. Most of the time they'll tell you, because the first thing off of their list of concerns is safety. So a lot of times they'll just frankly tell you. But whenever you contact some of your hotels to verify, so for example, I booked somebody to Amsterdam's Canal Pride last year, and I found a hotel that overlooked the canal, and I wanted to make sure that the room category, which was over canal looking, was going to be overlooking the right canal, or if there was one. And so I messaged the hotel and, we'll put him in the best room. We don't have it booked right now. So it's slotted in, it's done. So I told him who was coming and why. And, sometimes it's good to know whether they need two beds, pet together, split, whatever.
One of the best questions, I just took it was a course actually on autism travel. And they had this blanket statement or question that I just thought really went across every sort of type of travel, right? Didn't matter who your traveler was, but it was, are there any concerns that you have about this trip that I should be aware of? And when you use those words, it gives people the opportunity to just share whatever might be on their mind. Or are there any challenges that you're concerned about?
For sure.
And so if that's the opportunity, right? You don't have to be specific as to what you're asking. You can just ask a blanket question and hope that they respond and recognize that you're just putting it out there, that no matter what is on their mind, you're open to hearing it.
Exactly.
So do you have a specific question that you ask or way that you phrase something?
I've not really had to yet, because in some of the marketing and people that are referred to me, they already know. So they're just, hey, me and my husband, me and my wife, we want to do this, me and my boyfriend, whatever. So they just flat out tell me. And usually the first thing is, well, if we're going to go to whatever destination, it's got to be okay and friendly for us. And so it's usually, for me, it's not a problem. Somebody's fine to tell me that, but not everybody is always so easy to tell that to. So, but asking it in a way like that, that's a little more open for, hey, you tell me what's
Mm-hmm.
important. And if they go from there, they go from there.
Awesome. Anything else you feel like we should know?
No, just that the IGLTA is a good resource, and it's a good place to start. And getting active with them a little bit has also helped me find some other ways to serve clients that I hadn't even thought of as well. So, my circle friends and clients tend to look or are one way or live one way, but there's still a broad spectrum of people under the whole umbrella. And so working with them was or going to their convention was useful to think about who else and what else the issues are.
Mm-hmm. I
So
love it. Well, and I particularly like the fact that you're willing to put yourself out there and educate yourself more on a segment of travel that's important to you, and ways to better sell it and better be an advocate, and resources. The resources available that I think you learn about when attending events like this are
for sure.
huge. Things that you
Absolutely.
might not have thought of before,
And
or known were available.
there were definitely quite a few, and there were even destinations, and anecdotes that were just, some blew my mind, and for example, like in Nepal, there was a trek operator, and he had said that at one point that there were however many gods in the Hindu pantheon, and there were many that were non-sex, asexual, and were other sex. So Nepal, he said, was fairly open and very open. So it was not something I would have thought of. And sure enough, a month later, somebody asked me to go trekking in Nepal. So, it was kind of like, oh, well, you'll have no problem there, I don't think. So just
Did you
things
feel
you
like the world
learn.
opened up more as opposed to closed?
Yeah, a bit,
Yeah.
for sure. And things that, just like I said, do you boycott? No, but things to think about. So
I love it. Ryan, thank you so much for being here and for
thanks for
sharing your
having me.
insight. You're also part of our DE&I committee, and I know that's a passion and a commitment that you make to KHM. So thank you.
Very welcome. Have a good afternoon and
Thank
happy
you. You too.
Pride.
Enjoy the lake.
Will do. And happy Pride this weekend if it's one of the three big ones that's celebrating this weekend. So
Awesome. Thank you so much.
you're
Take
welcome.
care.
Bye-bye.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining us today. I think it was insightful and we learned so much. Thank you to our sponsors for their continued support of KHM Today, especially our overall sponsor, Apple Leisure Group. Next week, you guys, Virgin Voyages is here. We're having a pajama party at the KHM head office. I'll be there doing some work next week. So join me next week in your pajamas as we bring Virgin Voyages onto the show. We are also going to be catching up with Anita Pagliasso and Bill Coyle as they are just coming back from ASTA's Legislative Day. And so we're going to get an update from them on what the issues were this week as they hit the Capitol on behalf of ASTA. So please join us next week. You guys have a great rest of your day and happy selling.